Today we're speaking with Anastasiia about the first days of the war in Ukraine, what it felt like to have to flee, and how grassroots leaders step up in moments of wartime. We'll explore her journey, the networks that formed on the ground, and what it means to build hope in the middle of a war.
Dylan and I did some work when the war in Ukraine initially started. We must have been there, 10 days after the war started, and met Anastasiia. But I'll leave the sort of rest for you to explain, Anastasiia. I just wanted to say what a privilege it is to know you as a human being, as well as have worked with you, just because Dylan and I were talking about how we've got this sort of like quite unique opportunity to work with lived experience, local change makers all across the world. But to have been able to work with you in such a vulnerable period of time when sort of life was swept right underneath you, and your boldness and the way that you went about life moving forward is something that I still carry in my life, and still feel inspired by it now.
Perfect, George. Well, thank you. Yeah, so Anastasiia, thanks for being here. I just wanted to start with you, and if you can just give us a little bit of perspective about who you are, and just a quick overview. We'll get into more details, but a quick overview about the work that you did at the beginning of the war in Ukraine and how we met.
Right. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for such a kind words as well. I have immense amount of respect and appreciation for you guys throughout the years. I'm getting to know you better and better and better, and I respect what you do more and more and more. So it is a honor to be here. So my name is Anastasiia Spivak. I'm from Ukraine, and I think my story, I've been thinking, how can I put that in the shortest way possible? And we had this kind of exercise in our team before us, like to put your story in the 6 words. And the first sentence that came to my mind, it was that I was lost my home but was replanted in a community soil. Well, my story begins in 24 February 2022 when the full-scale invasion happened. But the way I would just say what I am right now, I'm just a person who's part of a community helping Ukrainian refugees and displaced people here in the UK, and trying to participate in community spaces all over the world very shortly.
Thanks for that. I think that provides a great overview, and also I love the use of the 6-word story. For perspective, especially because the war has been going on for so long, and I think that we kind of get numb to the news and we get numb to the repetitiveness of it, and we kind of forget what it actually feels like. So can you take us back to the beginning of the war in Ukraine, kind of what was going through your mind, and what did it feel like when it actually started and you had to leave your home?
Yeah, that's a very confusing sort of couple months before war started. Obviously, everything got escalated very quickly, and before war started, there was a lot of rumors and a lot of news, tension. The Russian troops were all around Ukraine, sort of for exercising and practice. It was very surreal. All of us, as I remember now, all of us were like, impossible. 21st century war, the full-scale invasion war happening, that's completely impossible. That's not going to happen. Maybe something going to happen, like a threat or something, but not going to be a war. And I think it's very interesting to go there, to go back to that time when you think we all were kind of in a denial, and a very, very strong one as well. You can see that retrospectively now, that everybody was trying just to persuade themselves, well, everything's going to be fine. Everything, like, it's cannot be that bad. And then as an old tradition in the war, had to start in the mid of night, basically in the 4 a.m. 5 a.m. I remember as it was yesterday, obviously everybody was asleep, and we woke up from the phone call from my relatives who were saying, like, it started, it happened, war started. And obviously the beginning, like, you're like, what? You're half awake. What do you mean? Only after that can you hear the sirens on another side of your window, and you're like, that was not like this when I went to sleep, for sure. And I remember that because the surreal, like the feeling of that being so surreal, and you just can't accept that. Even though very, very rapidly from that moment, you like something click in your mind and you're like, okay, so get it ready. One person go to ATM, one person collect the clothes. We call in all of our relatives, friends, whoever needs to be collected. Where we go, where is the safest place? And thinking of like trying to collect all of you, you're just trying to sort of avoid actually accepting the situation or realizing that they're actually happening, and you straight from disbelief you go to a high mobilization of all of your resources and mind to get everything done. When I called my sister, she was already in the queue to ATM, and because my mom already called her, our mom already called her, and it's just like like a fever dream. It's like a delusion. You just go outside, everybody is running in, and when the full-scale invasion happened, I was in Lviv, which is like on the far left side of Ukraine, so far west side of Ukraine, which is, you would think, the farthest point from Russia, and not going to be that scared or whatever, but it felt the same, because at the moment everybody was waking up by what, and the airports in every region in Ukraine was bombed. Also Lviv's one as well. So everybody was waking up by siren, by explosions, all around Ukraine. And Ukraine, I guess, I think it's worth to mention, it's a huge country. It's a massive land, and to the scale, to get that scale, that explosion was happening absolutely everywhere in every region that had airports. It feels like a total despair sort of thing. It's just like, oh, that's happened again. Since I experienced Russian occupying my homeland in 2014, for me that was like a flashback for what was happening when I was just a kid, when I was like 50-year-old old, with Donetsk and Lugansk regions in Ukraine. It's so hard to explain the mixture of emotions when you feel so scared. You feel like you're in a nightmare. Then you feel like absolutely total utter anger that comes like just makes you explode, burst with emotions. But then it's also sadness and hopelessness and everything all at once. And I remember for the first couple of days, any person you see, anyone, just glued to their phone, they're scrolling all of this absolutely atrocious, like explosion, bombs, everything what will happen, and you just read everything, and every news that starts like 5 death, 10 death, people like the children been injured, you just feel pinch in your heart like your family. It is the craziest feeling ever when all of a sudden 10 and 10,000 people became your family, and you're like, oh, it's actually connects to me. It's my war now, and everybody who connected to that, and my people.
I just can't imagine. I really can't imagine. So you call Veronica, who's your sister. For those who don't know, we do know Veronica. Shout out Veronica. So you call Veronica. Veronica's at the ATM, and then are you guys then planning your exit together at that point? Initially, you're like, we're leaving.
Yes, the idea is that we're gonna go to a village, to our relatives there, because it seems to be reasonable thing to do when bombing happen in big cities. You're like, okay, we need to gather everybody together and make sure that everybody's safe, but also we need to do it in a place remote from big cities, and like, and then we jump in a car, and our relatives came to pick us up, which was also very challenging because, again, no gas, like all of the petrol stations are completely empty because people are panicking, getting twice as much. Everything is just a chaos. Also queues everywhere on the entrance to the city and the exit of the city. It's just obviously like it's just so disorganized and so chaotic. We happen to get as much as we can, our clothes, everything together in the suitcases. We picked up my sister Veronica, wonderful person, and then just get to the village. And from there, everything felt like time was stretching. You can feel every second, especially if you like look at the person in the eyes and you're like, oh, what's happening? This the fear, sort of trying to help each other, support each other. Oh, everything's going to be all right. But then both of you know that's not true. It's not going to be all right. And it's already not all right. And you don't want to go through news. You don't want to turn on TV because it's just screaming. Everybody is just okay. So what's happening? You see the official speech of the president of Russia saying they launched a military operation, and your blood just boiling. The amount of the aggression you have is just impossible to describe. And you just don't do that. Try to put it away, to avoid it for a second, but that is unavoidable. It's everywhere. So we were in the village for some time, but our relatives and especially my partner at that time, they insisted to us to leave the country as soon as possible. Men were already not allowed to leave. It happened I think in 24 hours after the full-scale invasion happened. So it was announced that none of the men can leave country who is older than 18-year-old old, and for everybody else, the sort of kids and women try to leave as soon as possible. And it was a very complicated decision. We ended up being close to Warsaw. I remember that time I was not working. I was unemployed, and it's just absolutely unbearable to be with your thoughts and news in the same time. So the first thing you think to do is, oh, okay, I just need to go out. The first thing we did was go on a protest and meeting in Warsaw together with our mom. We were just shouting, screaming, crying. Everybody, just like 1,000 people were on the squares in Poland. And about a week time in, you just understand that, okay, you slowly start to understand that life sort of go on in a way you just can't be in this, it doesn't really freeze state of mind because you're actually actively doing something, but you also need to plan something, which is kind of ridiculous if you think about it. What can you plan? You're completely forced to leave your country. You have everything you left behind, and it's impossible to know what's going to happen next. We decided to move to Krakow and live there temporarily for the time being, just to see what's everything going to and what's going to happen, and sort of trying to do at least some kind of executive decision about our lives. And for me, that was just a decision of, okay, I just need to find out who and where I can go to volunteer and to help someone. I remember just wandering around train station in Krakow, because I know English and I know Ukrainian, and I just trying to see who is misunderstanding each other and trying to help one side or another. I did sign up with the train station, has been volunteering in the train station as well, just helping them direct people to the right location, just trying to point them to where to go, which felt like I'm busy enough and kind of stopped me from thinking about anything, which was very helpful to keep myself busy as much as possible, and also help as many people as possible, because this is the only thing you can do at that moment. And to say the least, what I saw in train station was completely horrendous. There was thousands of people, families sleeping on the floor, not knowing when to go. We came there by buses and with no tickets further. The refugee places like Centris was already, not really established that much yet, but the places where the people could go and sleep for a couple hours were already completely full. And most of the people just had to stay there at the train station. Lots of those people was going directly from east part of Ukraine, directly from those cities that were heavily bombed already in the first couple of weeks. Lots of those people looked very exhausted and traumatized. Looked like they not only have no plans for what's going to happen tomorrow, but they definitely need some help right now. And obviously, as much as everybody wants to help, and there was a very big sort of center with food, with water, with clothes and everything. Lots of people were coming there donating food. It's actually was kind of, as hard as it was to watch people suffer, and there is again another side of this process. There is volunteers who was just going there. The feeling when there's bringing boxes with like handmade sandwiches that they just did it in the morning, like 100 of those sandwiches, and you're like, oh God, this is so much effort. Like the people are incredible. Lots of people were bringing everything. There was a few points when I remember when I was helping volunteering in the food center, like a food section, when it was giving out food and tea and everything. And at some point we realized we don't have space for the donation, like a food donation anymore. We had to figure out and try to find another place. And when you see people all of a sudden in the blink of an eye just being united for the other people who just, to another country, not even their country. I know it's obviously like everybody is a human and we want to help everybody, but at that point you just feel, this is just incredible. There's so much help and so much support. It was overwhelming in the bad and the good sense as well, because whatever was happening, it felt like everybody was a part in it, like was taking a part in it.
Just to explain, because I know that you won't do it, Anastasiia, but you were there as a volunteer, just sort of running around and organizing and getting things done because you wanted to help. A real local change maker, real local leader. And Chris noticed and saw you working there and thought, I wanted to work with Anastasiia. So that then formed USPUK.
Yeah. I do remember that very specifically. It was an interesting conversation because I remember me and Chris, we were just sitting there talking how we actually can just help Ukrainians to get to the safe place, help them not to be scared, help them to explain everything. Where we can find those people. Obviously they're everywhere, but how can we deliver this information and what kind of information that we deliver? And so organizing all of this, like, the sports of like keeping that on the safe side, not on chaotic. That was our priority, and it took us a long time to understand that. Like very quickly, we understood we need more help, and that's where you guys came along, and where we started to knock on the doors, crack of government officials to get the permission to get to refugee centers where Ukrainians were, and obviously those centers are not very easy places to live, and there's a lot of people, no privacy. All of the people have traumatic experience, and all of those people need help. And from our perspective, we needed a bigger team. We needed a more clear understanding how can we help. And what I loved about this approach is how safe it was. We were not doing anything with anyone until we're sure that that's completely safe, comprehensive for Ukrainians, because there was a lot of there was so much going on, obviously, in this kind of time, this crisis. There's people were taking advantage of this crisis as well. So we wanted to be on the safe side. And yeah, this is the time when we met, and it was a very interesting time, very exciting. I remember it was very complicated. Like it's complicated to get around. I remember we were sitting for 4 hours in this Sky Hotel in Krakow, which was kind of our office at that moment, trying to figure out how to create a proper form to collect like people's sort of data and be able to get the information across to them. It was a journey. It was so much work for everybody involved in that.
So the focus of USPUK became sort of emboldening Ukrainian displaced peoples with the information to help themselves to get to the UK. That was translated, so you were sort of translating visas and stuff like that. But also it was very much about helping people physically and in person to relocate to the UK that a lot of these Ukrainians actually didn't know was even an option. So over the next sort of two-year period, really, how many Ukrainians did you as a team, I think at any one time sort of somewhere between 10 and 15 Ukrainian women resettle and help get to the UK?
I think in our database, it was over 1,000 Ukrainians who were safely helped to be located in UK. It sounds like maybe not the biggest number ever, but in the perspective of making it very safely, connecting people from UK with the Ukrainians who need help, let them know all of the details and all of the safeguarding process and everything, taking into consideration, this is a huge amount of help. And everybody who was involved in that process is like hours and hours talking to Ukrainians, because as you mentioned, in a lot of Ukrainians' mind, UK was a very closed up country, sort of like a mythological country that you can't really get in. And everything, as we tend to do, as we're prone to do, take all of those kind of opportunities with suspicion and a little bit of a disbelief. So just to talk to them and get them into that position when they're actually willing to try and willing to seek this safety in the UK, it's already a lot of work, but also do that 1,000 times more. It was definitely a greatest achievement, and it's worth to say that USPUK still does that, and the number probably is much higher now. And there are still many people in UK who is volunteer to be sponsors for Ukrainians, and also has to be said out loud that there's a lot of appreciation from Ukrainians goes to that too. It was a huge thing to do, to organize. As you remember, we used to have an office in Krakow with a lot of people. We had a physical presence in the refugee centers, so we had to go also under all of our consultants, including me as well. We had to sit there and talk to refugees. Very often listen to their stories that quite horrendous, quite traumatizing even to think about it, and just trying to cope with that and help them.
Sorry to interrupt, Anastasia, but what was so amazing as well about USPUK was lived experience helping lived experience. So at first, obviously, it was you guys sort of 10 to 15 at any one time of people who had been on horrific journeys themselves, helping other people who were on horrific journeys or helping them get to some place of safety. But also what was incredible was to see this bond created by, you know, this team of Ukrainian women, and who all became a real lifeline for each other in a foreign country, working in a new context, in a new language. And yeah, it was a really incredible thing to witness.
It is a very good point. Lots of people who were affiliated with USPUK were from east part of Ukraine that were under occupation or under attack or heavily bombed. So lots of those people who see their fellows from the same cities or regions, of course, you have this undeniable connection. You feel like this is your family. I remember specifically there was one moment when there was this family who reached out to us via Telegram saying like, we need help. We think that we can do that, but we don't really know what it is, or how does the home sleeping visa work, and what's going on. And I remember we agreed to meet up in a cafe place, and again, it was just giving them information and everything, but all of a sudden in the midst of conversation, this lady, she would say, oh yeah, I'm not sure about that because my dad was killed in 2015 in the occupation that happened there, and now like my husband is fighting, and she just started like bursting in tears. And I remember that I just immediately start crying as well. Felt like they talked about my relatives, felt like we all went through that. And it's just impossible. We ended up just hugging it out, just like literally sobbing together. This is like the reality of working with refugees, especially when you, the one who, with this lived experience, when you went through that as well, when you understand that what they feel, you just give it all. You give to those people everything you can, trying to take care of yourself as well. But there is a lot of like common pain, which we all carry together still.
Yeah. And they feel that they can share that space with you instantly, you know, whether it's a digital call or an in-person meeting. It's that you guys all have the bandwidth to sit in that space with somebody who's really struggling because you share that same struggle.
I think there is a very specific thing that people who go through the same lived experience can get to each other. I think there is so much potential in that, definitely, because it's about many factors. It's about mentality. It's about everything basically. When you speak to a person who goes through this kind of traumatic events, and this person knows that you're from that part of the world, and you from that kind of perspective, you understand that they can be open with you. They they can be a bit harsh with you, which is also important in many occasions. As I remember, we were doing a small movie, like a film, in a refugee center, and I was taking it, like speaking to refugees from all around Ukraine. And the moment they discover that I'm from Donetsk, and the moment they discover that I'm Ukrainian as well, the whole conversation changes immediately. And in the way of they being more open, but also more harsh, like in the way of like sharper, saying more dramatic stuff, being more like, oh, but you know what it is, right? Like, oh, and also kind of giving this, like having that common space where the reality that I know, the reality that they know I know exists, now they can be very explicit about that and talk more.
Yeah. And that experience is so, yeah, it's almost like a superpower you have now, Anastasiia, with that lived experience and the way that you've helped so many hundreds, if not thousands of people. Because you also, it's not just for the Ukrainian cohort that you now carry that lived experience, but also for other refugees or displaced peoples, representing all sorts of cultures and areas across the world that you can sometimes I talk about like riding the wave with somebody, and I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but being able to, ride the wave with somebody is really important, and you have that superpower now. So, one of my real unique takeaways from working in the Ukraine across that period of time was all of these different projects that sort of became visible, that were raising money, whether it was to rebuild a bridge in Donetsk, or help a family get to the UK, or build a shelter in this space. And the amount of not even international aid, but the actual communities of Ukraine banding together to raise literally millions of dollars for local community groups focusing on local stuff was, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it still exists now. It must still exist right now, right?
Definitely.
Just
It's like
all run across Telegram.
Once you realize that, once you can see the immediate effect, once you can see the power of that. I remember there was a situation where there happened a very massive attack on many cities all around Ukraine, and it was completely outrageous how, like, that scale of attack. There was like 500 drones and ballistic missiles and rockets and everything, and I was so, like, you feel so much anger. And there was those media person just said, okay, we're all angry, let's donate to this account to me, and I'm gonna buy like millions of, like, 10,000 drones. And we get, what do you think? It's just people collect, like, I think it was like 7 million of Ukrainian currency hryvnias, or 10 millions. I don't remember. It's a huge amount of money. It's unimaginable. I think it was collected in a day or so. It's just the thing, if you can direct and channel people and like the stuff that connects and unite them in the right direction, you can achieve so much. And there is people who can do that. There is leaders who can do that. And it's just, this is the power of a lived experience, as you said before.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, what we wanted to show today was the impact of these communities and these grassroots movements all the way into war efforts, because I think that from the outside looking in, that people put caps on the potential of grassroots movements, on the potential of bringing together communities. But when you think of something like a war, you think about that people might be powerless. But at the beginning of the conversation, you were talking about how the war became everybody's war, and everybody had a role in it, and everybody was coming together and had a part to play. And I think that this has been really important to hear about the power of the community movements. And, USPUK and working with refugees was your source of strength, it sounds like, and you being able to give back to the war effort and pay it forward. And everybody plays a role. And so I think that for me, it's been really interesting to hear that and reaffirming, because if you really believe in the power of local communities, even in the largest scale problems, the people who are making the largest impact are the local communities. And so we really appreciate, and it's just amazing and incredible, the work that you've done and mobilizing those people at the beginning. I say those people like George and myself who are coming to Krakow looking for ways to get involved, and you were that linchpin in making it happen. And to today, where you're still doing it in your spare time and helping refugees and being a part of refugee communities. And so I wanted to just bring it full circle with that, and then also just talk about like final messaging from the conversation, and think something that you want people to take home from it, who are listening to the podcast. Just what is the core message that you want somebody to go home with?
Thank you, first of all, for everything that you said. The core message, I mean, it's all sort of goes around the idea is that if you think you don't have anything to give, if you think that you don't have power enough, it means that you are like not connected to your community. If you think you're alone, if you think that you can't do anything, it means that it's worth to try and get connected, and then you'll see that it's actually possible. It's always possible. It's always possible. There is a people, there is a connection, there is this sense of belonging that everybody has and everybody can use for moving things forward. And it's so easy to be caught up in like this helplessness, in this hopelessness, in this feeling that I'm just a small piece of something in the system. I can't move anything. But as soon as you connect yourself to other people, you can not only discover the potential, uncover your potential of leading people, directing people, helping people, you also can help them to discover the potential about themselves. It's all about community at the end of the day. I mean, in the real world, it's just all about
Something
that.
that was important in your life before the war, or something that happened after?
I do think it's happened after the war. As I said in the beginning, it was just replanted myself in a community soil.
Well, we really appreciate the time, Anastasia. It's been great to hear more about the power of community and the impact that it's had in your life. I think that, as you've talked about, the whole process and journey has been a mix of emotions of like just extreme negatives and extreme positives, of like the positives, people coming together and helping, and the way that you've embraced the community in your life and pay it forward. And the empathy and understanding, as George said, is you'll be riding the wave with everybody moving forward, and you can really understand what people and feel what people are going through and be able to help them and understand how to help them is it's really special. And so we appreciate you coming and being vulnerable and sharing a little bit more about your story. George, I don't know if you have anything else you want to say, but
Yeah, no, I would, just echo what you said. And I wanted to say thank you for your service to the world, Anastasia. I think like I was so, when Dylan and I were on that plane to Krakow, and I was thinking, wow, the fuck, what are we going to do? And then we arrived at the Sky Hotel and met you. And it was like, oh my gosh, we got like the most competent, like, activist here who's just doing and delivering and producing, and given what you'd been through in the 7 days before, it was just immensely inspiring, and that inspiration is what I still carry to this very moment, because I really mean it when I say that. When I think about, when I have some sort of any sort of like blips or hard bits of my life, the mediocre hard bits of my life, I think in those moments, what would Anastasiia and Veronica do in this moment? But I really mean that. And so it's been it's a great privilege to know you. It's a great privilege to work with you. And here's to many more lives that you're going to help and guide.
Thank you so much for that. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. Thank you so much for that. I am incredibly appreciative of everything. Like, you guys helped me immensely, and there's so much support going on around that. And I just want to say that, like, without you and without other people involved, I think this collective effort would not have happened. So I'm just incredibly lucky to know you guys and be a part of this.
Amazing. Thanks, Anastasia.
you.
Thank you.